Okay, this is Game Fuel by Taylor Kelty, exploring the idea presented by Steve Swink about what game feel is. He defines it as real time control of virtual objects in a simulated space with interactions emphasized by polish. And I think that's a really fancy way of saying that something is satisfying to play. And just like all good design, it's only really noticed when it's not there. So if something is designed well, you rarely ever hear anybody say this is designed great. But when something is designed poorly, it's the first thing anybody says, where they say it has horrible game design or whatever, horrible art design, horrible logo design. When it's done well, you don't really notice how well it's designed. I think game feels kind of the same. So exploring, let's go back. We're going to be exploring the real-time control, the simulated space, and polish. So real-time control is the immediate feeling of interactions happening when you push a button. So like in Street Fighter, it's like within milliseconds. You push a button and something happens. So it actually feels tactile. Like I push this button, this thing happens. It's the same thing in FromSoft games. I'm using the Bloodborne example here, because I think that game had a really nice tactile feeling. Everything felt really impactful, especially that gun. As soon as you pushed that L2, fired off the gun, and it was just a really satisfying control. And the simulated space. This is when the arena, the place that stuff moves around on. I picked Deep Rock and Hades on here. They both offer very diverse environments to move around in, somewhere that the player actually gets used to navigating around. And then we have polish, and I think this is we went over in class that this is kind of the bucket that Swink throws everything else into. Uh, it's the feeling that you get from the interactions happening on the screen. So I think mostly it's in the colors, the effects, the particles, the screen shake, camera zoom, stuff like that happening. It's the slot machine idea of flashing lights and fun melodies playing. In Street Fighter, you get the character glowing blue for a second as time slows down when you get a perfect parry. In Hades, you can see that the all of the attacks are really flashy, and they, not to reward the player in that sense, but to let them know what to look out for. It's things that really, I think, grab the player emotionally. Now, the 5 experiences of Game Fuel, we're starting with the aesthetic sensation of control. And I moved from Bloodborne over to Elden Ring here, specifically riding the horse of Torrent. The aesthetic sensation of control, I believe, is just how good it feels to move around the world. And once you get the horse in Elden Ring, it totally transforms navigation. All of a sudden, you can move twice as fast. You can double jump. Uh, the dragon before that was, smashing you, now all of a sudden you can run circles around it. It totally changes the game feel. Now we have learning and mastering a skill, and this is simply practicing something to get better at it over time. I think it compares really well to muscle memory. As someone that's just hit 500 hours in Street Fighter, it I think the soul of that game comes from practicing something enough that you can see yourself getting better against real players. That's what makes the game feel so good to play, is seeing your actual growth. Now we have extension of the senses, and this is when the player can start to believe that they are in that world, which I think is just we started just calling that immersion. So when the player feels really immersed in this world, I picked a scene from Deep Rock Galactic where you can see that there's smoke or some sort of mist or gas coming out of these plants. We have the insects in there. You can kind of feel how the scene is going, like moving through the grass. There's probably sounds coming from the insects and in an echo through the hallways here. These plants are probably poisonous. All of this, you can probably just feel it moving through the world once you've played it through enough. Now we have extension of the identity. I'm picking really any FromSoft game over here and any fighting game really over there. It's all about avatars. The more that players can identify with either their character or identify with other characters, like the way that they present themselves, the more that we start to feel a connection to it. We start to view um, these other characters as different versions of um, just people. Like we can actually see ourselves in them or see the differences in ourselves from them, and that's why fashion souls became such a huge thing in the way that players want to dress. Street Fighter, really all fighting games come from just which character you think looks the coolest, and a unique physical reality. And this is where the physics of a world, of a game world, are believable, where you can start to understand how the physics are going to work in that world. So in Hades, we know how throwing explosions are going to react. We know what it looks like to knock enemies into other enemies. We know how far throwing objects are going to go and how much damage they're going to do based on how far they are. And in Deep Rock Galactic, even if you've never seen these particular like fungi growing in a cave before, you can understand how natural life forms work in that world. And you know that you can probably shoot them to trigger them, or they're just harmless. It really just depends on the world, but you start to kind of predict how the natural life forms are going to go. That's not even the physics, that's just the plant life. That game's crazy. So, for a final conclusion, sticking back with Deep Rock, I think the game feel really comes from, I mean, just this scene right here. You can see that we have 4 different characters that have all decorated themselves. We can see the numbers that have ticked up on screen for that satisfying kind of slot machine feel that Balatro really plays into. Uh, really, I think players are going to remember more about the way a game feels than anything else about it. Particularly if it feels good, then they'll start to remember more about it. But if a game feels bad, they're not gonna bother remembering anything else about it. That's all. Thank you.